This is a Sony DSR-400. Its unusually round shape is a giveaway to its origins. It's a very late model DVCAM camera. So late that the body is an XDCAM disc design instead of the usual boxy shape. Sony built it and its widescreen brother, the DSR-450, in 2005 as the last DVCAM models. This shows in a bunch of places on the camera. The usual VTR cam switch is strangely absent. Instead, you can use the DeX controls whenever you want, and the camera will switch between the two modes automatically. Instead of the typical small LCD for microphone and battery levels, there's just a piece of plastic. Sony instead opted for a bigger, full-color LCD display with a few different uses. If you turn it around 180 degrees, it folds back into the camera, which is pretty neat. This way it acts just like the classic LCD. It can also display the same video as the viewfinder, though it's not sharp enough for focusing and not bright enough to really use outdoors. In comparison, the viewfinder is typical for professional cameras of the time, a CRT. It's incredibly sharp and makes focusing a breeze. I also like the addition of several indicator LEDs around the tube. Delivering the picture is the usual setup of 3 CCD sensors with a beam splitting prism. These ones here have a name so cool Sony even put a little badge on the camera, PowerHead X. And they deliver. They're oversampling to the point of almost being HD ready. We're talking 980 by 1064 effective pixels for the PAL model. This of course results in an incredibly sharp picture. The encoder also seems to be working overtime, and the result is an absolutely stunning picture that might be mistaken for HD at a glance. In front of the sensors is the usual B4 mount for 2/3 inch broadcast lenses. I've attached a Fujinon HD lens that's much newer than the camera, but it still works just fine. There is one caveat with this. While newer cameras support ALAC, a protocol for correcting chromatic aberrations, the DSR-400 doesn't. Instead, it has so-called lens files containing parameters for correction, but if there's no file for your lens, you're out of luck. The DSR-400 comes with 4 assignable buttons and a 5th that's permanently set to zebra. I found the location at the front of the camera instead of on the side a bit unusual, but got used to it pretty quickly. Compared to more modern cameras, where it's not unusual to have more than 20 assignable functions, there's a measly 5 here. It's interesting that they still opted to make these assignable instead of simply having each button do one thing. As you can see, the menu system is quite clunky. Apparently it's borrowed from Betacam cameras. But save for an initial setup, you won't be spending much time in there anyway, so it's not too much of a problem. I usually just set up my levels for the gain switch, -3, 0 and 6 decibels, my assignable buttons, 36 decibel turbo gain and automatic white balance, and my viewfinder display and zebra levels. Zebra is a feature that displays a pattern on parts of the image over a certain brightness. This camera has 2 different patterns with independent levels, which is very helpful when judging exposure. To help with getting the exposure right, the camera comes with the usual array of 3 ND filters actuated via this wheel here. Audio-wise, the camera has 2 XLR inputs on the back, with selectors for line level, mic level and mic level with phantom power. Weirdly, there's only a single front XLR input. It can be mirrored for fake stereo, but if you want to connect a true stereo microphone, you'll have to use the rear inputs. One last, admittedly small thing I like about this camera is that Sony opted to put the lithium coin cell that keeps the clock going right next to the audio controls. Instead of having to partly disassemble the camera, you can just pop this little flap open, which is just really nice. And that concludes the tour of the DSR-400. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below. As usual, I'll leave you with more test footage of the camera, and I hope to see you next time.